just between us. They are too embarrassed to tell you this truth. I'm going to tell you instead. Right now, because somebody out there has been sitting on something they will never actually say to your face. And today, for whatever reason, is exactly the day it's coming out. Okay, get comfortable, because this one's heavy. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say exactly what your best friend is too scared to tell you. There is a person, or maybe a small cluster of people, who know something about how wrong they were about you. And instead of ever saying it out loud, they just carry it around like a stone in their pocket. I need you to picture that stone. Cold, small, always there, always in the way of their hand when they reach for something else. That's what this truth has become for them. And what I'm getting before we even go any further is that saying it to you would mean admitting they were wrong. You were right. They were wrong. And for the kind of person we're talking about, being wrong feels more dangerous than staying silent forever. Ignoring this truth is like driving down a highway and seeing your check engine light flicker on. You know how that feels, right? That little red light on the dash. You are too embarrassed to pull over because you don't want to look like you don't have it all together. You tell yourself, I will just keep driving. Maybe it will go away. Yeah. You turn up the radio, you focus on the white lines on the road, and you try to forget it's there. But deep down, you know that the longer you ignore that little red light, the closer you are to total engine failure in the middle of nowhere. That's exactly what's happening in this person's head right now. You were the warning light they decided to ignore. So let's talk about who this actually is, because it's rarely just one face. Sometimes it's a coworker who smiles a little too wide in meetings. Sometimes it's someone from your own family who talks about you like they know you, when really they stopped paying attention years ago. Sometimes it's a friend, maybe friend group, a whole little ecosystem of people who agreed on a version of you that was never true and just kept repeating it to each other until it felt like fact. There is a massive elephant in the room, and it's time we stopped pretending it's a piece of furniture. I'm hearing your name mentioned in rooms you were not in. I'm hearing the conversations that got quiet the second you walked in. If any of that lands, just notice it. Don't force it. Just notice it. Let's be real. We are all props at wearing the I've got this mask, even when we are drowning. But you don't have to wear it right now. You just have to observe. Here is the thing that's going to hit you first, though. This person, whoever they are, genuinely believed you would fold. Not in a dramatic, cartoonish way, in a quiet way. They watched you go through something hard, maybe more than one hard thing, stacked on top of each other. And somewhere in the back of their mind, they were waiting for you to go tired, waiting for you to disappear from the group chat, from the room, from your own life a little bit. They pictured you shrinking. And I want you to sit with that for a second, because there is something almost sad about a person who needed you to fall apart in order to feel okay with themselves, about themselves. You have been white-knuckling your way through this, pretending everything is fine, while they just sat back and waited for the crash. They were betting on your breakdown. They had a spreadsheet in their head, tailing up all your weaknesses. And they were so sure that it was only a matter of time before the tally outweighed your strength. But you didn't fall apart. You kept showing up in a way that honestly confused them. Every time they thought you'd finally hit your limit, you found some quite unglamorous way to keep going. Nobody clapped for it. Nobody. There was no finish line moment. You just kept getting up, brushing yourself off, and continuing over and over until it stopped looking like luck and started looking like a pattern. And patterns are what break people's expectations. That's what happened there. Their whole prediction about you collapsed in real time. And now they are standing in the wreckage of the story they told other people, a story that simply never came true. Think about it like planting a rumor, the way you'd plant a seed you never intend to water. They expected it to just grow on its own, fed by other people's gossip and their own wishful thinking. Instead, the ground didn't cooperate. The story dried up, and now they are the one left holding an empty garden bed in front of everyone they promised a harvest to. What people don't talk about enough is how threatening it is to witness someone become unshakable. Everybody's comfortable with talent. Yeah, everybody claps for looks, for charm, for the easy wins. But when someone survives something and comes back steadier instead of smaller, that unsettles people, because it means you cannot be controlled by circumstances anymore. You are not reacting the way they expected. You are not begging for anyone's approval the way they assumed you would. And a person who doesn't need anyone's permission to keep existing is, frankly, terrifying. Yeah, terrifying to somebody who built their whole identity around being the one who gets to decide who matters. We are so obsessed with hustle culture that we've forgotten how to just be honest with ourselves. We think being hustle means running faster than everyone else. But real strength, the kind you showed, isn't about speed. It's about durability. It's about sitting in the breakdown lane, looking at that check engine light and deciding to actually fix that damn engine instead of just buying a new car to impress their neighbors. I keep getting this image of a tree that got stuck, split right down in the middle, and everyone assumed that was the end of it. But instead of dying, it grew sideways twisted itself around the wound and kept reaching for the light in a shape nobody expected. That's you. You didn't grow back the way they thought you would. You grew back in a shape that makes them uncomfortable to look at, because it proves that damage didn't win. There is also something happening with how they talk about you, or used to. I keep hearing this phrase repeated like it's being said out loud more than once. That's not who we thought you were. That's not. Somebody built a whole narrative around an old version of you. Maybe from years ago, maybe from before you set boundaries, before you stopped explaining yourself to people who never deserved an explanation in the first place. That old version is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. But this person is still clinging to it like it's current, like it's accurate, because the current version of you doesn't fit the story they've been telling. Yeah. And every time someone new meets you and doesn't recognize the person this individual described, it chips away at their credibility a little more. Here is where it gets uncomfortable for them. I'm hearing something like, we didn't think people would actually like them this much. That sentence alone tells you everything. There was an assumption baked into their gossip that if people really saw you, really knew you, they'd agree with the narrative story instead of the opposite. Instead, the opposite kept happening. People got close to you and stayed close. They found you funny or steady or easy to be around in the way they didn't expect. Some of them started recommending you, defending you, choosing you. And every time that happened, it cracked the narrative a little more, until this person had to sit with a very uncomfortable realization that the villain they invented never actually existed outside their own head. Underneath all of it, and I want to say this gently because it's the real core of the whole thing. This is jealousy. Not the loud kind, the quiet, corrosive kind that disguises itself as concern or criticism or just being honest. They are jealous of how you move through the world without asking anyone's permission first. They are jealous of the way you can walk into a room and just be yourself without performing. They are jealous of the small things too. The way you laugh a little too loud when something's actually funny. The way you talk with your hands, the specific rhythm of how you carry yourself. Those are the exact things they have spent their most energy criticizing, and that's not a coincidence. People rarely attack what bores them. They attack what they secretly wish they had the nerve to. If this message is hitting a nerve, it's because it's exactly what your soul has been screaming for. It's hitting a nerve because it's true. And that discomfort you feel listening to this, that's the signal that you are ready to stop shrinking. And something is shifting for them right now, whether they are ready for it or not. I keep getting this number that keeps flashing 911. And it's not an alarm. It's more like a wake-up knock at the door of their own conscious. It's arriving whether they answer it. Whether they answer it or not. They are starting to realize quietly, privately, that you were never actually the problem they made you out to be. You were just someone with standards, and standards make people who don't respect boundaries extremely, extremely uncomfortable. Think about the specific moment they are replaying right now. A comment they made in passing, an eye roll they didn't think anyone caught, a time they left you out of something on purpose and called it an accident. Those moments used to feel justified to them. Now, looking back, they feel small and mean, and honestly, kind of embarrassing. There is a particular kind of nausea that comes from realizing you were the villain in someone else's very reasonable story, and that feeling doesn't go away easily. It sits in your stomach like something you ate too fast. It's like to stop gatekeeping your own happiness because you are afraid of what they might think. This person was trying to gatekeep your reputation, trying to control the narrative, but you took the keys back. You stopped letting them drive your story. I'm also picking up on something like a mirror effect happening in their life right now, where the exact way they treated you is starting to show up in how someone else is treating them. It's uncomfortable to watch your own behavior get reflected back at you from a different angle, and that's exactly what's unfolding. They are finally understanding, from the inside, what it felt like to be dismissed, doubted, or talked about behind their back. Because now it's happening to them. And with that understanding comes a very specific, very uncomfortable kind of clarity about what they put you through. Here's the thing about people who spread a story instead of asking a question. They rarely investigate. They hear one loud, confident version of events from someone who seems sure of themselves. And they just accept it. Because agreeing is easier than digging for the truth. Nobody came to you first. Nobody asked for your side. They just repeated what they handed, passed it along like it was fact, and moved on with their day, while your name got a little more distorted every time it changed hands. And now, slowly, reality is not matching the story anymore. And that gap between what they were told and what they are seeing with their own eyes is impossible to ignore. Some of the people who believe this story started to feel it too. Are starting to feel it too. Not everyone who repeated it was their original source. Some of them just got caught up in it, nodded along, added their own little detail without thinking twice. Now those people are quietly realizing they helped build something false. And that's an uncomfortable thing to sit with, especially if they ever want to walk it back. Because the second they try to defend you now, Somebody's going to remember exactly who was talking about you before. That's how this kind of tends to unravel. This kind of thing tends to unravel. Not all at once, but thread by thread, until the whole fabric gives out. Karma, if you want to call it that, doesn't usually show up as a lightning bolt. It's slower and quieter than that. It looks like sitting with your own words for months, replaying your own sentences in your head at 2 a.m. and cringing. Yeah. It looks like watching someone else repeat about you the exact thing you once said about somebody else. It's not dramatic. It's just persistent. And persistent discomfort has a way of teaching lessons that a single dramatic moment never could. What's interesting is that gossip tells you more about the person spreading it than it ever tells you about the person it's aimed at. It reveals who's bored, who's insecure, who's quietly competing with someone they will never openly admit they are threatened by. Every time this person brought your name up in a room you were not in, they were handing out little clues about their own insecurity without realizing it. And people notice that eventually, even if they don't say anything at the time. You, my beautiful soul, on the other hand, have this quiet way of watching. You don't grab at every piece of information you are handed. You sit back, you observe, you let people show you who they are instead of talking or taking someone else's word for it. That's not coldness, that's discernment, and it's rare. While other people were repeating whatever they were told like it was gospel truth, you were quietly gathering your own evidence, forming your own conclusions, and staying 2 steps removed from the noise. That instinct has protected you more times than you probably realize. And here is something people are starting to notice about how you handled all of this. You didn't retaliate. You didn't turn it into the thing they accused you of being. While someone else was being reckless with your name and stayed composed, that contrast is not lost in the people watching from the sidelines. There is a specific kind of respect that gets earned when someone treats you badly and you refuse to shrink to their level. People remember who stayed classy in the middle of something messy, and they remember who acted small. Let's be honest about something else too. Not everyone in this story is against you. There are people, maybe more than you think, who genuinely admire you, who talk about you with warmth when you're not around, who quietly root for you without ever making a big deal about it. This isn't a story about the whole world turning on you. It's a much smaller, much more specific story about one person or a tight little circle who got it wrong and are now watching their own version of events fall apart in front of an audience that no longer fully believes them. You feel like you're the only one struggling with this, But I promise you, you are in a very crowded boat. So many people are dealing with this exact dynamic, being made small by someone else's insecurity. You are not alone in this, and recognizing that that truth is the first step toward realizing that their opinion never really mattered in the first place. There is a very particular sting that comes from being completely convinced you were right about something, only to discover later that you were completely wrong. Your stomach drops, your face gets hot. There is this little internal voice that starts whispering that you are careless, that you should have known better. That is exactly the feeling this person is sitting with right now. They were so sure. They built a whole confident little story and told it with a straight face, and now the ground underneath that certainty is giving out. And there is nothing more disorienting than watching your own confidence turn out to be built on nothing. And now they don't know how to approach you. That's the part that's eating at them the most, eating them alive. They are wondering if you know what they said. They are wondering if it ever got back to you, and in what version, and how distorted it became by the time it reached your ears. They are scared of what happens if you finally decide you are done giving them any access to your life at all. And honestly, that fear is not unreasonable, because bridges like that do sometimes burn for good. And there is nothing wrong with the letting one burn if it needs to. Something is shifting though. Change is in the air around this whole situation, not just for them, but in how the story itself is being retold by everyone around, everyone who is watching it unfold. People's perception is changing up to reality, and somewhere in that shift, there is a small, quiet apology forming that may never actually reach you, or might arrive far too late to matter. There is an old lyric about it being too late to apologize, and if that phrase means anything to you right now, because somebody out there is finally sorry, and sorry doesn't rewind anything. Whether or not you ever let that person back into your life is entirely your call. Nobody gets to decide that but you. But what matters more than their apology, late or otherwise, is what you did with the space they left behind. They wanted you bitter. Instead, you became better. You didn't spend your energy plotting anything. You just kept living, kept building, kept becoming more full yourself. And that quiet refusal to become what they expected is the loudest response you could have ever given them. None of this required you to be perfect. You're not perfect, and you never were. Never supposed to be. What you are is honest with yourself, willing to grow, willing to keep your heart open without leaving the door unlocked for just anyone. You've learned who gets access and who doesn't, and that discernment came from experience, not bitterness. There's a kind of balance in you, not now, that wasn't always there. Maybe there was a stretch of time where you felt anxious, unsteady, like everything was titling sideways. If that's true, notice how far you've come from that place. Because the version of you sitting here right now is a lot steadier than the one who started this chapter. People are watching how you carry all of this, whether you realize it or not. And what they are seeing is somebody who got knocked around and didn't turn into a spectacle. Somebody who didn't hand anyone the satisfaction of a public unraveling. You adapted, you processed what needed processing, and you kept moving forward without making it anyone else's business. And there are people sitting somewhere right now genuinely confused about how you do that, how you just keep going, because they know for a fact that if their roles were reversed, they would have given up long before now. Your inner critic is a liar. And today we are finally going to mute that voice. You're not broken. You are just under construction. And this truth is the foundation for the new you. Stop waiting for the perfect moment to change, because perfect is just a fantasy word for never. That momentum you are building is about fixing a mistake. It's about building a life that is so full, so undeniable, that the silence from those who doubted you becomes the loudest applause you will ever hear. That, at the end of the day, is the actual truth nobody wants to say to your face. It's not really about what they said about you or why. It's about the fact that they know deep down they wouldn't have survived what you survived with the same grace. That's the embarrassing part. That's a part too uncomfortable to admit out loud. So I said it instead, because today was clearly the day, a clarification, the day it needed to be said. And now you know. This isn't just another motivational talk. This is a wake-up call you cannot afford to snooze. You have been waiting for a sign. Well, consider this your neon bright billboard. The road ahead is clear, and you don't need anyone's permission to drive.